Joins us from South Korea, an associate professor of international relations at the Pusan National University. The United Nations Security Council is going to be meeting to discuss how to respond to this. What would be the best response?
Well, the UN should obviously sort of say this is a terrible thing to do, and they should try to get Russia and China on board with this. I mean, that's always the big stumbling block when dealing with the UN, right? Is that the Russians, and especially the Chinese, often feel that North Korea is a useful sort of poke in the eye to the Americans, and so they provide North Korea with cover. This is a useful way to sort of say global opinion, not just the Americans or not just the Japanese or whatever, but global opinion stands behind this. And so the UN is useful for arm twisting. You can push for more sanctions, but I would argue that that's actually not going to do a great deal of good without Chinese compliance on that, and that's not really been forthcoming.
China was not informed prior to this test. Does that mean that potentially there is going to be a bit more scope for China to be in agreement with other voices at the United Nations? It might make that a little bit more easy.
Yeah, China's role on North Korea is in some flux in the last couple of years. We're not really quite sure what's going on. We do know that the two states are on the outs at the moment. They're not getting along particularly well. It seems particularly that the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, the new leader the last couple of years, really dislikes North Korea, or at least the North Korean regime elite. But China still permits a lot of food, fuel, rice, things like that, to sort of, luxury goods to come into North Korea through the border that they share. And this is really the problem with sanctions, right? Everybody supports sanctioning North Korea and embargoing and all the rest. But the problem is that you need Chinese compliance. They have to sort of close the door in the north so that these things don't come in. This is how the regime elites get, the yachts and the HD TVs and the sports cars and everything else, right? I mean, these things come in through China, and so we need China's compliance, and we're getting very mixed signals about what the Chinese think. My sense is that the Chinese feel very frustrated by North Korea, but they don't want it to implode on their border.
So if China doesn't do what the United Nations wants it to do, what other options are there?
My own sense is that the way forward for the democracies in the region, by which I mean South Korea, Japan, and the United States, is missile defense. Right? If diplomacy is not working, if the North Koreans insist on building nuclear weapons and missilization, no matter what we say, no matter what we offer them, and it seems like that's really the case now, right? This is the fourth nuclear test. We've been telling them for 25 years not to do this. They're just not listening. I don't think diplomacy is going to work. The other alternative would be use of force, like airstrikes. That, of course, is hugely risky, right? So what's the other alternative, right? Defensive layering, right? That is to say, air defense. And I would like to see South Korea and Japan really get on board with this. The Americans have been pushing South Korea and Japan on this. Japan, I think, has come around to this sooner than South Korea, which I think is still looking for a negotiated solution. But missile defense, in short, that's the answer into my mind, the short-term answer.
Robert Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.